Have you ever been peacefully enjoying a public park when suddenly your tranquility is shattered by a squadron of middle-aged women armed with portable speakers that could wake the dead? If you've traveled in Asia, or really anywhere in the world these days, you've probably encountered them. The Dancing Aunties. Today's story takes you into the battlefield of Golden Phoenix Square, where these unstoppable forces of nature transform public spaces into their personal dance studios, leaving bewildered tourists, frustrated locals, and reluctant dance recruits in their wake. Welcome to Story-Driven English, where we turn everyday cultural phenomena into engaging stories that help you master English vocabulary, expressions, and cultural insights while being thoroughly entertained. Before we dive into today's comedic tale about the infamous Dancing Aunties, take a second to hit that subscribe button and notification bell. Why? Because our weekly stories combine humor, cultural observations, and practical English learning in ways textbooks simply can't match. Our community of English learners is growing every day, and we'd love to have you join us on this language journey. Now, grab your imaginary dance headband and prepare yourself for The Dancing Aunties of Golden Phoenix Square. A story of cultural clashes, unexpected friendships, and the unstoppable power of enthusiasm that knows no volume limit. The Dancing Aunties of Golden Phoenix Square. In the small town of Springwell, nestled between rolling hills and modern skyscrapers, there was a picturesque community park called Golden Phoenix Square. Every evening as the sun began its descent, the square transformed from a peaceful haven into what locals jokingly referred to as the battlefield. Mrs. Jenkins, an American expatriate who had lived in Springwell for 2 decades, would watch from her third-floor apartment window as they arrived. They came in groups of 5 or 10. Sometimes even 20. Women in their 50s and 60s, dressed in vibrant matching outfits that could be spotted from outer space, carrying portable speakers that seemed designed to test the structural integrity of nearby buildings. "Here come the Dancing Aunties," Mrs. Jenkins would mutter to her cat, Mr. Whiskers, who had learned to anticipate the daily spectacle and would join her at the window, his tail twitching in rhythm with the approaching commotion. The Dancing Aunties, as they were affectionately, or not so affectionately, known around town, were led by Madame Wu, a woman of 62 years whose voice could penetrate concrete and whose determination made military generals seem indecisive. Her second-in-command was Auntie Lee, slightly younger but equally formidable, particularly when it came to securing prime dancing space in the square. Today, Mrs. Jenkins noticed something different. The Dancing Aunties had arrived earlier than usual, and they were setting up with a practiced efficiency that suggested a special occasion. Mr. Whiskers meowed questioningly. "I don't know what they're planning," Mrs. Jenkins told him, "but I suspect the town is in for quite a show." Down in the square, Madame Wu clapped her hands 3 times, a sound that instantly silenced her troops. "Ladies, today is very important day. The mayor is bringing special visitors from America to see our beautiful town. We must show them true culture." The aunties nodded in unison, adjusting their matching headbands and stretching their limbs with the seriousness of Olympic athletes preparing for competition. "We will dance the dance of prosperity and good fortune, followed by the dance of eternal youth," Madame Wu continued. "Auntie Chen, your speaker working properly today?" Auntie Chen patted her massive speaker with pride. "New batteries. Very powerful. Can hear in next city." Madame Wu nodded approvingly. Volume was an essential part of their cultural expression. If the music couldn't be heard from space, was it even worth dancing to? Meanwhile, across the square, A young couple was celebrating their anniversary with a quiet picnic. Emily and David had specifically chosen Golden Phoenix Square because of its beautiful fountain and flower displays. They had no idea about the local evening ritual. "This is perfect," Emily sighed, pouring 2 glasses of sparkling cider. "So peaceful." David smiled, unpacking their carefully prepared sandwiches and salad. "I told you this would be more romantic than an expensive restaurant." Their blissful ignorance lasted exactly 7 more minutes, until the first bass notes from Auntie Chen's speaker system caused the surface of their cider to ripple like a scene from Jurassic Park. The Dancing Aunties had begun. "What on earth?" David jumped, nearly spilling his drink as the sound wave hit them. Emily turned toward the source of the thunderous music to see 20 women in formation, moving with surprising synchronization to a techno-traditional fusion beat that seemed designed to bypass the ears and vibrate directly through one's skeletal system. "Should we move?" Emily asked, raising her voice to be heard. David assessed the situation. "Maybe they'll be done soon?" His optimism was admirable but misplaced. The Dancing Aunties were just warming up. Across the square, another drama was unfolding. A tour bus had arrived, carrying visitors from various countries. Their guide, a nervous young man named Kevin, was attempting to provide historical information about Golden Phoenix Square. This fountain was built in 1892 and features. Kevin's words were swallowed by a particularly enthusiastic drum sequence blasting from the Aunties' speakers. The tourists looked confused, some covering their ears, others instinctively starting to move to the beat. "Perhaps we should move to another location," Kevin suggested, his voice strained. But Madame Wu had spotted the group. With the instincts of a predator sensing prey, she immediately recognized an opportunity for cultural exchange. She signaled to her troops, and the formation shifted, moving closer to the bewildered tourists. "Welcome to China!" Madame Wu shouted over the music, though they were actually in a town with a distinctly international population. "You join our dance. Very good for health." Before Kevin could intervene, 3 Japanese tourists and 1 German businessman had been incorporated into the formation, looking both terrified and resigned to their fate. "No thank you, we're just—" Kevin's protest was futile. The Aunties had expanded their territory. Back at their picnic spot, Emily and David were attempting to salvage their anniversary celebration. "We could try the cafe across the street?" David suggested, shouting to be heard. Emily nodded, beginning to pack up their barely touched meal. Just then, a shadow fell across their blanket. They looked up to see Auntie Lee standing over them, hands on her hips. "Young people, why sitting? Come dance." She gestured emphatically toward the group. "Oh, we're actually just having a private anniversary picnic," Emily explained with a polite smile. Auntie Lee's expression suggested this was the most ridiculous thing she'd ever heard. "Anniversary? More reason to dance. Make marriage strong." She reached down and grabbed Emily's hand, pulling with surprising strength. David watched helplessly as his wife was absorbed into the Dancing Aunties' expanding formation. He quickly packed the remainder of their picnic and followed, determined not to abandon Emily to this rhythmic kidnapping. By now, a small crowd of onlookers had gathered at the edges of the square. Among them was Mr. Huang, the owner of the Lotus Tea House adjacent to the park. He watched the scene with a mixture of resignation and amusement. "They come every day. asked a customer standing beside him. Every day, Mr. Huang confirmed. Rain or shine. I once saw them dancing during a typhoon warning. Madame Wu said the dance would protect the town from the storm. Did it work? The typhoon changed direction. Madame Wu took full credit, of course. The customer nodded thoughtfully. Their enthusiasm is impressive. Wait until you see what happens when someone tries to use their dancing spot. As if on cue, a group of young skateboarders appeared at the far end of the square. They were regulars in the mornings but had never ventured into evening territory before. Unaware of the unwritten laws governing Golden Phoenix Square, they began setting up a small ramp near the edge of the Dancing Aunties domain. Madame Wu noticed immediately. Without missing a beat in the dance of eternal youth, she dispatched Auntie Zhang and Auntie Lu to address the situation. The two women approached the teenagers with smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes. No skateboard here, Auntie Zhang informed them firmly. Very dangerous. You fall, break hip. Very bad. We're just staying in this corner, one of the boys explained. We won't get in your way. Auntie Lu shook her head. Not possible. We need whole square for special dance. Very important cultural heritage. But this is a public space, another teenager pointed out. The aunties exchanged glances. The concept of public space was clearly open to interpretation. We dancing here every day for 10 years, Auntie Zhang said, her voice rising slightly. You find different place. The standoff might have escalated, but at that moment, Madame Wu executed a perfectly timed transition into the grand finale of their routine. The music swelled to what surely must have been illegal decibel levels, and all 20 dancing aunties began moving in an expanding circle that would soon encompass the entire square, including the skateboarders' corner. Recognizing a tactical retreat when they saw one, the teenagers picked up their equipment and left, casting annoyed glances over their shoulders. Back in the center of the formation, Emily was discovering muscles she never knew she had as she attempted to follow the surprisingly complex choreography. David had been placed several rows behind her, paired with a German businessman, both men moving awkwardly to the thunderous beat. Just swing arms like bird. Auntie Lee instructed Emily. Very simple. Nothing about this felt simple to Emily, but she did her best, partly out of politeness and partly because she wasn't sure she could leave without offending her enthusiastic new dance instructor. Meanwhile, the mayor's group had finally arrived. Mayor Thompson, a tall woman with a permanent political smile, was escorting 3 American investors interested in developing property in Springwell. They stood at the edge of the square, watching the scene with varying expressions of bewilderment. This is unexpected, one investor commented. It's part of our town's cultural tapestry, Mayor Thompson improvised smoothly. Springwell prides itself on embracing diverse traditions. Madame Wu spotted the official-looking group and immediately recognized the mayor. This was the moment she had been preparing for. With a series of hand signals that would have impressed a military strategist, she reorganized the formation to create a path straight to the mayor's party. Distinguished guests, Madame Wu called out as she approached, her face beaming with pride. We perform special dance for welcome. Before Mayor Thompson could respond, Madame Wu had taken her by the hand. The other aunties quickly surrounded the investors, guiding them, there was really no other word for it, into the formation. From her window, Mrs. Jenkins watched the scene unfold with a mixture of horror and fascination. "I didn't think they'd actually capture the mayor," she told Mr. Whiskers, who seemed equally impressed by this escalation. The dance continued for another 20 minutes, incorporating elements that Madame Wu announced were from ancient tradition, but appeared to include moves from disco, techno, and possibly aerobics videos from the 1980s. When the music finally stopped, the square fell into a silence that seemed deafening in comparison. The Dancing Aunties stood in their final pose, breathing heavily but looking triumphant. Their captive participants, tourists, picnickers, and city officials alike, looked shell-shocked but somehow relieved to have survived the experience. Mayor Thompson, ever the politician, was the first to recover. "Thank you for that extraordinary cultural exchange," she said, discreetly wiping sweat from her brow. Madame Wu beamed. "We dance every day. You come back tomorrow, bring more friends." "That's very kind, but I think our schedule tomorrow is quite full," the mayor replied diplomatically. As the crowd began to disperse, Emily and David finally escaped back to their picnic blanket, which had remained miraculously untouched throughout the ordeal. "Well, that was different," David said, collapsing onto the blanket. Emily laughed, her face flushed from the unexpected exercise. "Not quite the quiet anniversary I was expecting, but certainly memorable. Should we try to finish our picnic?" Emily glanced at the Dancing Aunties, who were now unpacking containers of food from oversized bags. The smell of various home-cooked dishes began to waft across the square. "I think we might be about to experience phase 2, she whispered. Indeed, the Dancing Aunties had seamlessly transitioned from exercise to dinner. Folding tables appeared as if by magic, quickly covered with dishes ranging from dumplings to stir-fried vegetables to soups that steamed in the evening air. "Everyone eat," Madame Wu announced to anyone still within earshot. "Very healthy food. Make you strong for dancing." To Emily and David's surprise, Auntie Lee approached them again, this time carrying 2 plates heaped with food. "Young couple must eat. Anniversary special." She placed the plates on their blanket with a flourish. Before they could protest, they were surrounded by Dancing Aunties, all offering additional dishes and unsolicited marriage advice. "Eat more vegetables, have strong babies," advised Auntie Chen. "Husband must compliment wife every day, even when she looked terrible," added Auntie Zhang with a wise nod. David choked slightly on a dumpling while Emily tried to maintain a polite smile. "Thank you all so much," she said. "This is very kind." The food, they had to admit, was delicious. Whatever else could be said about the Dancing Aunties, they were excellent cooks. Across the square, a similar scene was unfolding with the tourists and the mayor's group. Resistance had proven futile. Now everyone was eating, the universal language of food bridging cultural divides that even the shared trauma of unexpected dance could not. Mr. Huang from the Lotus Tea House observed the scene with a resigned expression. His own dinner rush would be non-existent tonight, as it was on most evenings when the aunties brought enough food to feed a small army. "At least they're quiet when they're eating," he muttered to himself. The peace was relative and temporary. Between bites, the aunties continued their conversations at volume levels that suggested they believed everyone in the square was interested in their discussion of neighborhood gossip, health complaints, and opinions on their children's life choices. "My son, very smart boy, works in big company," Auntie Lee was telling Emily and David. But no girlfriend. I tell him, what good is big salary if no family? I introduce many nice girls. He always say too busy. She shook her head in dismay at the incomprehensible priorities of the younger generation. Emily nodded sympathetically, her mouth full of surprisingly spicy noodles. Your children? Auntie Lee inquired. We don't have any yet, David replied. We're focusing on our careers first. This statement was met with a collective gasp from the aunties within earshot, followed by a rapid exchange in their native language that needed no translation to convey their concern for this tragic state of affairs. No worry, Auntie Lee finally said, patting Emily's hand. You dance with us every day. Have baby very soon. Dancing opens the fertility channels. Emily nearly choked on her noodles. As twilight deepened into evening, Golden Phoenix Square took on a festive atmosphere. The portable speakers now played softer music, though soft was a relative term when it came to the Dancing Aunties audio equipment. Some of the tourists had brought out cameras and were taking photos with their new friends. Mayor Thompson and the investors were engaged in animated conversation with Madame Wu, who was gesturing grandly toward different parts of the square. Mrs. Jenkins, still watching from her window, sighed. I suppose we won't be getting our quiet evening after all, Mr. Whiskers. The cat meowed in agreement, then perked up as he spotted movement on the far side of the square. A new group was entering. Young men and women in exercise clothes, carrying yoga mats. Oh dear, Mrs. Jenkins murmured. The Thursday evening yoga class. This should be interesting. The yoga instructor, a serene-looking woman in her 30s, surveyed the occupied square with visible confusion. This was their regular spot, booked through the town's recreation department. She approached the nearest dancing auntie, who happened to be Auntie Chen. Excuse me, we have this area reserved for a yoga class at 7:30, she explained politely. Auntie Chen looked at her as if she had spoken in an alien language. Reserved? No. We hear every day. Very important cultural activity. The instructor maintained her calm demeanor. I understand, but we've actually paid for a permit to use this space on Thursday evenings. This concept seemed to puzzle Auntie Chen even more. She called over to Madame Wu, who was still entertaining the mayor's group. A rapid discussion followed, with much gesturing toward the yoga class members, who stood awkwardly clutching their mats. Finally, Madame Wu approached the instructor, her expression a mixture of confusion and determination. You want to do exercise here? We already doing exercise. Much better than yoga. You join us. That's very kind, the instructor replied carefully, but we have a scheduled class. People have paid for it. Madame Wu considered this information. How many people in your class? 15 today. Madame Wu turned to survey her domain, mentally calculating space allocations with the precision of a battlefield commander. We share, she finally announced, as if bestowing a great gift. You take that corner. She pointed to an area that comprised perhaps 1/8 of the square. The yoga instructor looked at the offered space, which would barely fit 5 people, let alone 15. I don't think. Is good compromise, Madame Wu declared firmly. Cultural harmony. Mayor Thompson, seeing the potential for conflict, quickly intervened. Perhaps we could find a solution that works for everyone, she suggested diplomatically. What followed was a negotiation that would have impressed international peace brokers. After much discussion, a compromise was reached. The Dancing Aunties would conclude their activities by 7:15 on Thursdays, allowing the yoga class to begin at 7:30. In exchange, the yoga class would participate in one group dance session per month, and the Recreation Department would officially recognize the Golden Phoenix Cultural Dance Association as a community organization. Madame Wu seemed pleased with this arrangement, particularly the official recognition part. The yoga instructor, though slightly bewildered by how a simple scheduling issue had evolved into a cultural exchange program, accepted the terms with grace. As the Dancing Aunties began packing up their equipment and food containers with the same efficiency with which they had arrived, Emily and David finally saw an opportunity to finish their interrupted anniversary celebration. "Well, that was certainly memorable," David said, refilling their glasses with what remained of their cider. Emily laughed. "I don't think I'll ever forget Auntie Lee telling me that dancing would open my fertility channels." "The food was amazing though," David admitted, looking at their now empty plates. "It really was. And they were so generous." As they gathered their belongings, Auntie Lee approached them one last time. "You come back tomorrow," she said, less a question than a command. "I bring special tonic for you. Very good for young couple." Before Emily could formulate a polite response, Auntie Lee had pressed something into her hand, a small packet with Chinese characters written on it, and hurried off to help with the packing. "What is it?" David asked curiously. Emily examined the packet. "I have no idea. Tea, maybe?" As Golden Phoenix Square gradually returned to its usual evening calm, the various groups dispersed. The Dancing Aunties moved as a unit toward the east exit, their day's mission accomplished. The tourists returned to their bus, many now wearing dance headbands given to them as souvenirs. The yoga class began setting up in the now available space, their calm voices a stark contrast to the previous energy. From her window, Mrs. Jenkins watched the transformation with satisfaction. "Balance restored," she told Mr. Whiskers, who had lost interest and was now grooming himself on the windowsill. The next day, right on schedule, the Dancing Aunties returned. And the day after that. And every day thereafter. Golden Phoenix Square continued its daily transformation from peaceful park to cultural battlefield and back again. A rhythm as predictable as the sunrise. In time, Emily and David became regular visitors to the square, though they carefully timed their picnics to end before the Dancing Aunties arrived. The mysterious tea packet, which they eventually had translated by a colleague, turned out to be a fertility blend that promised guaranteed results or double your money back. They kept it as a souvenir but wisely chose not to test its efficacy. Mayor Thompson's investors ultimately decided to develop property in Springwell, impressed by the town's vibrant cultural integration. One of them even joined the Dancing Aunties on his subsequent visits, claiming the exercise did wonders for his chronic back pain. And Mrs. Jenkins continued her daily ritual of watching from her window, narrating the unfolding drama to Mr. Whiskers, who had developed the uncanny ability to predict exactly when Madame Wu would arrive each day, always 5 minutes before anyone else. Golden Phoenix Square had found its rhythm, a delicate balance between cultural expression and public space, between tradition and adaptation. It wasn't always peaceful, rarely quiet, but somehow, it worked. A microcosm of community life with all its complexities, challenges, and unexpected moments of connection. And at the center of it all were the Dancing Aunties, moving to their own beat, reshaping the world around them through sheer force of will, one dance step at a time. Key vocabulary, repeated throughout. Dancing aunties, middle-aged or elderly women who participate in public square dancing, often characterized by their enthusiasm and loud music. Formation, an organized arrangement of people, especially in dance or military contexts. Cultural exchange, the interaction and sharing of cultural elements between different groups of people. Public space, an area that is open and accessible to all people, such as parks or squares. Compromise, an agreement reached by each side making concessions. Volume, the loudness or intensity of sound, often a point of contention with the dancing aunties. Synchronization, the act of making things happen or move at the same time and speed. Territory, an area considered to belong to or be under the control of someone. Tactical retreat, a planned withdrawal from a difficult situation to avoid further conflict. Vibrant, full of energy, brightness, and enthusiasm. Formidable, inspiring fear or respect through being impressively powerful or capable. Bewildered, confused and disoriented, often due to unexpected events. Unsolicited, not asked for. Given or done voluntarily. Enthusiastic, having or showing intense and eager enjoyment, interest, or approval. Transition, the process of changing from one state or condition to another. Thank you for joining us for today's story-driven English lesson featuring the Dancing Aunties of Golden Phoenix Square. We hope you enjoyed this humorous tale while improving your English vocabulary and comprehension skills. Did you recognize some of these characters from your own experiences? Perhaps you've encountered similar personalities during your travels or in your local community. The world of the dancing aunties is something many people across cultures can relate to in some way. If you found this story entertaining and educational, please give our video a thumbs up and share it with friends who are also learning English. Your support helps our content reach more English learners worldwide. Do you have any experiences with enthusiastic aunties in public spaces? Or perhaps you've witnessed interesting cultural clashes while traveling. We'd love to hear your stories in the comments section below. Don't forget to subscribe to Story-Driven English for more engaging stories, news-based lessons, and vocabulary-building content delivered every week. Click the notification bell so you never miss our new uploads. Remember, learning English through stories makes the language come alive in context, helping you remember vocabulary and expressions more naturally. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in our next story-driven English adventure.